Hello and welcome to Steve and Dave's 50 Years Ago this month. This time around, we're taking a look at the Billboard Hot 100 from February 15th, 1975. And it's a good one.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of, a lot of new entries into the top
Yeah.
10. And so that's going to be our point of concentration this time around.
Right.
And we start off with a hot one.
We do, Dave. You're absolutely right. This is in the conversation for the best single ever from Linda Ronstadt, I think. It's Ronstadt's "You're No Good" at number
Yeah.
one.
Well, I think that's hard. I think that's a hard call to make because I think she's got so much good stuff. But this is definitely one of the really good ones. No question about that. This came off of her album Heart Like a Wheel, which was her fifth solo studio album, released in November 1974. It was her last album to be released by Capitol Records. At the time of the recording, she had already signed with Asylum Records, but this was a contractual obligation with Capitol, so that's it's still this came out on Capitol Records yet.
Yeah, and Asylum was the label, it's the hot label in Hollywood at this point. This is where artists wanted to be, and so yeah.
Yeah. So Capitol really lucked out on this, especially considering
Yeah,
that this
yeah, they
this
did.
this album was really hot. It topped the Billboard album chart mainly on the strength of the singles, this one and When Will I Be Loved, and it eventually went double platinum. In addition to being nominated for the Grammy Award for the album of the year. The song was an older song by Clint Ballard Jr. One of the first people to cover it was Dee Dee Warwick,
Oh gosh, yeah, okay.
sister of,
Sister of, I believe that's the sister of Dionne Warwick.
that's
Just a
so
guess.
true, and
Okay.
cousin of Whitney Houston, and so on and so
Oh
forth.
yeah, yeah.
Producer of this was Peter Asher.
Well, of course he was.
All right, so Steve, tell us a little bit about Peter.
A World Without Love, my friend.
That's all right.
So Peter Asher, half of Peter and Gordon, had a handful of hits in the 60s, including a song, I think this is, yeah, World Without Love, which was a gift from McCartney. Asher was housemates with one Paul McCartney for a while in the early 60s as McCartney was dating his sister Jane and moved in to the family home. And so he had Peter Asher also then had when he as a second life, an extended second life as a record producer and
Yeah,
music executive. He had a real touch, and so
yeah, he really did. And part of this, well, he contributed quite significantly to the California sound, the Southern California sound.
oh, definitely, definitely,
Represented by people like J.D. Souther, Andrew Gold, James Taylor, Bonnie Raitt,
yeah.
uh, and of course Linda Ronstadt. Right. So
Yeah, this is
um,
right. You're absolutely right, Dave. So this is that Southern California sound. This is Doug Weston's Troubadour. People getting, sharing song ideas at the bar, getting tips about would-be bandmates. And again, you mentioned Andrew Gold. Andrew Gold's a part of this record, right?
yes, yeah, he was played a significant role in the production of this record and of this particular single in
Yeah.
particular. Um, just one more thing about Asher. Asher
Yeah.
also was one of the co-founders of Roxy Theater in West Hollywood, which opened on September 23rd, 1973,
Yeah.
with such partners as Elmer Valentine, Elliot Roberts, Lou Adler, and David Geffen. So some of the
Well, yeah.
some of the big
Heavy
hitters
hitters. Yeah.
in Los Angeles were,
Became
uh,
became a prime venue, the Roxy, for a long time.
and they recorded this at the Sound Factory in LA. That's where she recorded most of her
Yeah.
biggest hits. And just to mention this, while we're talking about the production, it's worth mentioning that the engineer was Val Garay, and he worked for
Hmm.
David Hassinger, who was the founder of the Sound Factory.
Okay.
And if Peter Asher was making an album It was probably going to be at the Sound Factory, and it was going to be with Val
Oh,
Gary as the engineer.
yeah.
So, because he worked on things like Taylor's JT, Bonnie Riott's The Glow, this album, and so on and so forth.
I think an argument can be made that Asher is the most influential record producer of the 70s. I mean, I think he's certainly in that conversation.
Well, yeah, I guess that's right. Although the competition is stiff
Well, it certainly is.
when you're talking about 1970s producers,
Well,
there were some giants out there.
well, you're right, but just Asher's relationship with Ronstadt alone, who was as big a female presence in popular music as there was in the 70s. Yeah, very, very influential guy.
Okay, just the last couple words about Gary. Um, he worked as an engineer and a producer with people like Kim Carnes. He actually won a Grammy together with her for Betty Davis Eyes.
Oh yeah, that's a fine song.
Um, Worked with Kenny Rogers, Ringo Starr, Eric Burdon, Dolly Parton, Sarah Brightman, Nicolette Larson, Santana, et cetera, et cetera. So uh, a lot of people
There we go.
were very big in the 70s, worked with Gary in some capacity.
No question. That's right.
Um, this was released November 19th, 1974,
Mhm.
and it went all the way to number one, of course, this week, 1975. It was her only song to reach that position, and that kind of surprised me.
So, she had one number one signal in her career.
Isn't that wild?
That's almost impossible to believe.
Well, I know, and it's like, well, similar to
I
like
mean, it just
Creedence Clearwater,
it's like that.
right?
Yeah, it's like that. And so is it the case like CCR that she was the whatever number two, the runner up time and again, or is this
I
because I just have this vision, this memory of her songs constantly
She
being in
was
the top 10.
churning out at least top 10 hits all the time
I
throughout the
mean,
70s.
multiple singles a year in the top 10. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not an
So,
exaggeration. Yeah.
um, anyway, as I
Wow.
said, this album went double platinum, just on the strength of the two singles. Um, and interestingly, this single, the B-side was I Can't Help It If I'm Still in Love with You, which was originally a
Oh,
Hank Williams song.
okay.
She was backed by Emmylou Harris,
Of
and
course.
that song charted simultaneously number two on the country and western charts for Ronstadt.
This this is interesting. Ronstadt had definitely had country chops.
Yes,
She had one at least a toe in the country world. She recorded well with lots of people and sang background on lots of country albums. Whether it's the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band or I mean, there's a whole host of folks. So yeah, interesting.
and she had been
Very
singing
eclectic.
this song in her act
Oh yeah.
for months previous to actually recording it. Um,
I mean,
but she had some thoughts looking back on her output in the 70s, and
oh, she's
specifically cited "You're No Good" as one of those. She said, "Quote: I thought the production on You're No Good was very good, but then I didn't sing it very well. As the song was just an afterthought, it's not the kind of song I got a lot of satisfaction out of
yeah.
singing." End quote.
It's so her yeah, she's famously indifferent to her basically her entire career in terms of her output. I mean, I mean, it's actually kind of shocking
I find it I
how
find it
she poor
amazing.
mouths everything that she's ever done.
She she kills this song.
Well,
I mean, she just kills it.
I totally agree. There are things that I don't think she's terrific on, but this is not one of them. And I think it's a fine record. I mean, from the solo from Andrew Gold, the production is fantastic.
Yeah, speaking of production personnel, we had Ronstadt, of course, on lead vocals. Ed Black was on the sixth string and the pedal steel guitar. Kenny Edwards on bass.
Oh yeah.
And Andrew Gold basically did everything else. He
Not
laid
everywhere else.
basic
Yeah.
drum track. He did the guitar solo, and he and Asher together did the overlays on guitar, keyboard, percussion tracks, etc. So Andrew Gold was like a co-producer, I'd say.
So I
Um,
think Andrew Gold's a kind of musical genius, and he has a kind
but
of
I only
a
know
taste.
him from
A,
Lonesome Boy. That's the only
oh,
thing
okay,
that I know
well,
him
it's
from.
his solo stuff is I think quite interesting, and his time with Ronstadt. I mean, I think this is when she makes her best music is when he's part of her band. He's also he's also kind of Hollywood royalty. His mom is Marnie Nixon. And Marnie Nixon won't mean much to anybody, but if you've seen like um, any musical, any movie from the 60s where a big star is singing, whether it's Natalie Wood or Sophia Loren, it's Marnie Nixon's voice. So she was the
Is
go-to.
that right?
Oh, it's astounding the number of songs or the number of movies that she appears in, her voice appears in.
My Fair
Um,
Lady, maybe.
yeah,
Even Breakfast at
uh,
Tiffany's.
yeah, that's right. That's right. It's Audrey Hepburn, I believe that's right.
Poor, poor Audrey Hepburn. I mean, I get it with My Fair Lady, but come on, all she had to do, she's just playing guitar and singing on a windowsill. Her voice had to be good enough for that.
Apparently not. I mean, you would think so. But
Moon
anyway,
River, but all right. Well,
well,
this is something that I carry with me. I feel really strongly that she got.
I had no idea. We just stumbled into something here. Um, yeah, Marty Nixon is the great trivia question. She passed just a few years ago, but one of the great trivia question
Well,
in
it's
Hollywood.
interesting. Yeah.
Anyway, that's his mom. Um,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, that's pretty much it for You're No Good. Let's listen in.
let's do it. You are 100% correct. She kills this. It's fantastic. It's a fantastic song. It's a fantastic
Yes.
vocal effort on her part. That solo is as good as it gets in the 70s. Just spot on. I mean, it's a damn fine record. And
I
I think it's one of her, I think it's, it's in the conversation for one of her best.
Well,
So,
okay. I mean,
whew.
there's a lot of competition for that, but yeah,
Fair
I'll
point,
buy
but
that.
there it's a heck of a way to start. And so at number one in mid-February of 75, it's Linda Ronstadt's You're No Good. Um, different song, equally kind of awesome, I think. At number two, it's a Scottish band, a Scottish horn band, um, the Average White Band with Pick Up the Pieces. This is all right. So strictly speaking, it's not an instrumental because there is some chanting in it, but it is, I mean, it's largely an instrumental, and it's certainly an up-tempo number, and it is I don't know if I would go so far as to say it's proto disco, but there's a danceability to it that is that's in, you just can't ignore. The Average White Band comes out of Scotland. Part of that whole British Isles kind of northern soul scene that is that this era was just it was just popping. Alan Parker's film from well some now 30 40 years ago, The Commitments,
Yes.
gives some insight into the intensity and the joy in the music in the British Isles at this time. But this is a song that's essentially penned by the band, a kind of collaborative number. A lot of credit is given to the sax player Roger Wall. It's uh, this is a song that peaks at number one. It's their lone number one hit in the United States. I was kind of surprised to learn though that it was not their lone top 40 hit. Now I was aware of Cut the Cake, which comes out a little bit later this year, and it gets to the just number 10. But they had three other top 40 songs in the United States, and so I was kind of actually I was kind of flabbergasted by it. But it's One of the other things interesting about the song is that it has had a kind of extended life because it has been sampled by everyone over the decades. This apparently is for many hip hop artists. This is a kind of go-to song because there's so many interesting grooves and so many interesting licks. Um, I, I I don't have much more to say about it except we should listen um, to the bridge, which is pretty cool. So here we go. This is the Average White Band's Pick Up the Pieces from
Okay.
1975. Northern Soul, UK style. It's almost enough to make you want to learn an instrument. I remember this as a kid thinking that if I could play music like this, then band would be a hell of a lot of fun.
I used
Um,
to play trombone. I could have gotten in on that. Could have
oh,
jammed.
well, then, well, you certainly could have. And so, well, there you have it. The average white bands pick up the pieces. We'll catch up with the average white band here in a couple of months.
Well, I think, yeah, I think proto
And cut
disco
the
isn't
cake.
isn't too much of a stretch for that.
That's my sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, proto disco. Well, okay, so there's number two. Number three. So there is this kind of debate within the this band about is the band a kind of ballad soft rock kind of band, or is this is a hard rock
So
kind of just
country
real.
is it country rock, country pop sort of thing? Yeah.
Yeah,
This
what
was
is
the
this?
this was
What
the
is
album that pretty much got
well,
decided
so
on, at least as far as the band is concerned.
I think you're right. And so this is so let's get to it. So you'll get a chance to talk about this. This is at number three. It's Best of My Love from the Eagles.
And the album was On the Border. This was their
Yeah.
third studio album, released March 22nd, 1974. Now, Glyn Johns
This is yeah.
had been their producer, and they went to London and they were working with him, and they expressed a desire to go more in the direction of rock band. And he said to
Absolutely.
them, you guys aren't the frickin' Who, all right? You are a country band.
Which I mean, and that was I mean, you know, he had some experience, right? I mean,
You know, he was working with
he
people
knew
like
it.
the Stones and stuff, and
Yeah.
for him, that was the rock band, and the Eagles weren't them.
Yeah.
So, um, so they cut a couple of songs there, and
Right.
then disillusioned, uh,
I think
essentially fired Johns
I
and
think that's right. I mean, I
went
mean,
back home to California and
went back home. Yeah, had enough of this. Yeah.
recruited Bill
Simzik.
Simzik. Thank you.
Yeah, and so he and they got a tip from him about him. I mean, Simzik had been
Joe Walsh,
working
right?
Joe Walsh, yeah,
Yeah,
worked
had
with
worked
Joe
with.
Walsh and Barnstorm, yeah.
But the funny part about it is that the single that saved this album
Yes, it's 100% true.
was
Yes.
Best of My Love, this single, which was one of the two that they cut with Johns.
Yeah, this is exact. I mean, I think Johns was right.
I
I
don't
mean,
think he was right, but you know,
I think he was right, and I think this is the proof is in the pudding here. This is, I mean, right? This is a Mount Rushmore Eagles song.
well, as is
Has to be.
the other single from the album, which was oh, help me
Oh,
out.
it's all already gone, and it's that.
Already gone.
No,
Fantastic.
it's
Rocky.
it's okay. Already gone is clearly not Best of My Love. Uh, this is this is an extraordinary song.
Best of My Love is a great ballad, a great love ballad. Um, Given a choice of the two, I'm going with Already Gone.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
oh, all right. Well,
But anyway,
I remain upright. Okay, go ahead. Please
on the
continue.
strength of those two singles,
Yeah.
but especially Best of My
Uh,
Love.
which was a monster song. Song of the year, basically, just about.
Well, I think, again, we're talking about, um, I, I believe this went on to number
It,
one.
yeah.
Let me just check on this real quick.
Oh, it definitely did.
It was their first number one single.
Yes, it was. And it was a monster number one.
And it was not one that they were looking forward to putting out. They really hung back with
I
that.
it's incredible. But I think right. It's the they want that guy to be right.
But okay, just real quickly, this was written by Henley and Fry
Hmm.
and J.D. Souther, who, by the way, around this time period was living with Linda Ronstadt,
It's a very small world.
just to make that connection.
Yeah, before that, he had been roommates and pals and bandmates of sorts with Glenn Fry.
And they all lived like
It's
over Jackson Brown's apartment, and it was
Yeah,
all,
right when they heard him, Jackson Brown, working on songs and stuff, and the tea kettle will go off. Um, that's a that Eagles documentary is fantastic.
yeah.
But yeah, so you've got, and this is the classic writing trio of Souther, Henley, and Fry. They they know what they're doing.
Anyway, On the Board was the first Eagles album to feature Don Felder, and it reached number 17 on the Billboard album chart. Sold 2
So
million copies.
yeah, I mean, this is the first real, I mean, album that takes off for the Eagles. I mean, it's this is okay. So see if I have this right. Felder has joined the band, but Burning Leaden is still in the Eagles. I have this right, and
And
so Felder
Felder did not play on this song.
right, because I think right, because this again, right, this is a London song, and so he joins after they get back to North America. But there's a period of time where the Eagles are a quintet, and with Felder and Ledden in the band, and Ledden famously, takes off, pours a beer on Fry's head. Um, but right,
J.D.
he's not on
Souther
this.
said that there was a time that they were working together so much that it seemed like um, he was going to be invited to join the group. Like that was going to be the thing that was going to
Yeah,
happen.
right.
And he just really wasn't interested in doing that. And
No, it's interesting. Souther, I mean, right. I mean,
and he made that clear. And he said they were probably very relieved to hear it because it was like we really should offer him a place in the band, but there really isn't there really isn't room, you
no,
know.
it's yeah, there isn't room. And it's Souther carved out a very interesting solo career. And right, I mean, but he was always on the fringe of the Eagles. He would contribute songs, and he was always part of their universe. And I think it probably worked out best for both parties that Souther
Yeah,
wasn't in
yeah.
the band, because famously that band was a little dyspeptic. I mean, it was a difficult environment, and too many. Well, it was.
Yeah, too many well,
Oh God,
too
it's
many
just
cooks
all,
spoil the broth or
all
something
that.
like
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But so
that.
best of my love is again. I do think that this. I mean, if you're looking for this John's perspective. I mean, I think that there's something to be said. It's hard to argue against this because it's like this is extraordinary.
Well, just a little bit of background about how it came about. They they went to London. They needed some songs to be recording, and this was like the second one that they had come up. It was like under a fairly strict deadline, but according to
Yeah.
Henley, most of the lyrics that he wrote were written in a booth at Dan Tana's restaurant, was near the Troubadour,
Yes.
and
Dan Tana's another
they even
famous LA hangout. Yeah.
they even thanked the maitre d' of Dan Tana, Guido, in the liner notes of the album.
Well,
Lyrics were
there's a tradition of this in the 70s, right? All sorts of people get things from Lennon.
Yeah,
That's
drug dealers and
no, all that.
yeah.
But I mean, again, I mean, thank you, Guido.
The lyrics were inspired in part by Henley's breakup with Susanna Martin, and the music. Fry recalled, "quote I was playing acoustic guitar one afternoon in Laurel Canyon, of course, where else?
Well, of course, yes.
And I was trying to figure out a tuning that Joni Mitchell
Of course, yeah.
had shown me a couple of days earlier. I got lost and ended up with the guitar tuning for what would later turn out to be the best of my love." End quote. So that's how that came about. Uh, this
Yeah.
this was one of the songs, one of these singles that became a single and became a monster hit because of a DJ. And it got airplay at the WKMI AM,
Mhm.
Kalamazoo, Michigan,
Kalamazoo.
Kalamazoo. And they started getting a lot of requests, of course. So um, Asylum Records heard his thing. He said, "Listen, my people will really go for this. My listeners just love it." So they gave the track a limited single release of 1,000 copies, only in the Kalamazoo area, and it just
Okay.
sold out in no time.
Okay, hang on. All right. So so okay, yeah, I mean, and why
A
wouldn't it?
test balloon. Um,
What were the executives what were the executives going to think were going to lead off with? What was going to be the lead single from this album if it wasn't going to be Best of My Love?
all right, official single releases already gone, and James Dean.
Oh my God.
Yeah, already gone. Good choice, James Dean. Maybe not so much.
Oh my God. Those are wow.
Yeah, and because James Dean really didn't go anywhere, they decided to go with Best of My Love.
Pete's
And
sake.
Henley tells an interesting story about that. Um, he said, "quote We had more or less given up hope for the success of On the Border,
Oh, I would think so.
and we'd
Yeah.
begun work on the next album. So when The Best of My Love took off, it was like a resurrection, a miracle, totally unexpected. On our last tour, the History of the Eagles tour, we tracked down that DJ, Jim Higgs,
Oh, that's good.
and we invited him to our show in Grand Rapids. His daughter brought him, and we had a nice visit backstage, thanked him for his early support, and took some photographs. It
Oh,
was
that's
a sweet moment, and I'm glad we got the chance to acknowledge him in person. He wasn't expecting it, and I think it made him very happy." End quote. So that's
oh my
nice.
God.
Right?
Well, yeah, that's yeah, that you don't hear many nice quotes coming, many sentimental quotes coming from the Eagles.
No, not a lot.
But I mean, it it's it probably saved them. Because this is their third
Yes.
album.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, I
when the
don't
single
know.
came out, Asylum Records released a truncated version of the song to make it radio friendly. You know what, 305 or whatever.
Yeah.
But the Eagles were not at all pleased. Not at all pleased. And so when this became
No, those are the Eagles I know and love.
yeah,
Unhappy Eagles.
when it became number one, it sold the first million copies. Their manager, Irving Azoff,
Yes.
sent a gold record with a piece cut out of it to Asylum
Oh my,
Records,
this okay.
mounted on a plaque with a caption that said, "The Golden Hacksaw Award."
You talk about somebody who needs a behind the curtain. Irving Azoff is unbelievable. There are just a million stories like this about this guy.
Yeah, we should do that.
Oh, that's good. That's yeah, with the piece cut out. That's perfect.
So anyway,
Oh,
um,
the
it,
perfect
it,
manager.
the critics loved it. Cashbox called it, quote, "a
Yeah,
very
this is
pretty country flavored ballad.
yeah, because
Harmonies
that's
are of
what
the usual Eagle excellence, and the instrumentation is mild and acoustic."
it's
End quote.
yeah, it's what they do best.
Record World called it, quote, "folksy ballad, which has
Yep.
the easygoing beauty to be one of the Eagles' biggest and bests. The soaring production takes their harmonies sky high."
Oh, well, there we go. I mean, it's a fine song and it's a great performance and it's what again, nobody sang like the Eagles.
with the Jimmy Joyce Children's Choir as backing vocals. Do we want to listen to this? Let's listen in.
Beautiful faces, loud empty places. Look at the way that we live, wasting our time on cheap talk and wine. Left us so little to give.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh, yeah.
Magic of the Eagles. Magic of the
Fine
Eagles.
stuff. Yeah, no
Yeah,
question.
it's great. So Best of My Love at number three will not be the last time we'll hear from the Eagles in the 70s, that's for sure. At number four then is really a very eclectic band, a band that I think you and I both have great affection for, and I think both wonder why aren't they in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? They're from Flint, Michigan, of course, and it is Grand Funk. Grand Funk at number four with Some Kind of Wonderful. You know, the thing about Grand Funk is that they were sponges. They were open to a variety of influences. Um, they had, of course, some interesting covers over the years, Locomotion being most famous. But this song, Some Kind of Wonderful, is song written by a guy by the name of John Ellison in the 60s that was on black radio stations in Michigan, and a kind of minor hit. Some Kind of Wonderful for the Soul Brothers 6 in 67 got to 91 on the pop charts, but was a kind of local hit in Flint. And the guys in Grand Funk listened to a lot of radio, and they listened to, I mean, listened to everything. And they recalled this song. They recalled this song, and there's this part in the song at the bridge, "Can I Get a Witness?" And it was a kind of inside thing amongst the guys in Grand Funk, and they said, you know, we should record that song, and they did. And remarkably, Some Kind of Wonderful got a rebirth and peaked at number three, and I would imagine made John Ellison a boatload of money. So, I mean, good for him.
Yeah.
Um, it's But again, I think what's interesting about it is again that the eclectic nature of Grand Funk. Grand Funk, I think, gets pigeonholed as a kind of blues band, kind of meathead kind of rock and roll. But I think it's far from it. I think a lot of their stuff was quite nuanced and quite really, I think, in its own way, kind of sophisticated. Grand Funk will have one more hit this year, a song that we'll talk about here in a couple of months called "Bad Times," and that will be really it. I mean, Grand Funk then, and we've talked about this, they dissolve into feuds that continue to this day, unfortunately. The three members of the original members of the band are still alive, but they don't see to eye on anything. So let's listen to Some Kind of Wonderful, and let's maybe we can get a witness here. So let's see what we got.
Now, is there anybody got a sweet little woman like mine? There got to be somebody got a sweet little woman like mine. Yeah. Now, can I get a witness? Can I get a witness? Well, can I get a witness? Can I get a witness?
Oh, I'm sorry. I love this song. I love this group. This is one of the few songs that Don Brewer and Mark Farner share co-lead vocals on, and there you have it. My God, Some Kind of Wonderful at number five. All right, so at number six, it's this. I don't think anybody anticipated this. This is a band taking a different kind of direction. It's
Oh, definitely.
the
Definitely.
Doobie Brothers with Blackwater. You talk about a story. There's a story here. Go
Oh,
ahead, Dave.
yeah. And it was so refreshing. All right. Blackwater came out on the album What Were Once Vices Are Now
Right,
Habits.
right,
Their fourth studio album was released on February 1st, 1974 by Warner Brothers. And
right.
the album would go on to make number four in
Yeah,
the Billboard 200, mostly on the strength of this single. Um, And this was another one that almost was not released as a single.
Right.
Again, DJs rescued this song from oblivion. Specifically from September 11th, 1974, WROVAM from Roanoke, Virginia,
Throwing it.
began airing Blackwater off the album because the Blackwater was a river, a Roanoke River
Mhm.
tributary,
Yeah.
and it's just a 25-minute drive from the Roanoke city center. So uh, here's a song, Blackwater. It seems to be like celebrating their river, right? But of course, specifically the Mississippi is mentioned in the song. But hey,
But yeah, I mean,
and
so we,
the listener response was so positive uh, that the music director said, no one's requesting anything else. Um,
oh yeah, I believe that.
so the broadcaster WQRK FM was soon also airing Blackwater. The intense regional success came to the attention of Warner Brothers. Blackwater had originally been issued as a B-side for
Yeah. Um,
another
another
Park Another
another
Sunday,
yeah, that's right.
right?
Which was a modest hit, like yeah, a modest hit.
Monostate, great song, but
Oh, totally. But
not a
yeah.
not a great hit. So it ended up getting released as the third single from the album, and it became the band's first number one single, March 1975.
It's just it's fantastic. Yeah, it's so unexpected,
Yeah.
so different from the output. So I mean, it just was incredible.
So it was released as a B-side on March 13th, 1974. On November 15th, 1974, it was released as the A-side with Song to See You Through as the
Right.
B-side.
Yeah.
The producer was Ted Templeman.
Hmm.
Patrick Simmons, who also would have lead vocals on this,
Right.
wrote it.
There's something about the song. Well, I mean, I think I've mentioned this to you before, but there's a kind of Americana element to it that I mean, Americana wasn't really bandied about in the mid 70s, but there's just something about this that seems like Simmons had tied into something timeless. Like he's
Yeah.
writing about it's something like it sounds like something like Stephen Foster would have written in the late 19th century. There's just and maybe it's the river, maybe I don't know, but it
Well,
is so different.
yeah, and the acapella part was certainly not
It's
something that you were hearing every day on Top 40.
no, you weren't, and it right. You got that exactly right, and it certainly wasn't something that the Doobie Brothers really did much with in other records or even in concert. But they were fine, they really could sing. I mean, the band was really very adept.
Oh yeah.
And interestingly, right, Ted Templeman, maybe the perfect person to produce a record like this because he comes from that vocalese tradition, right, of Harper's Bazaar in the late 1970s, which was essentially a kind of a vocal group. So
Yes.
he knew how
Yeah.
to deal with voices in the studio.
And knew how effective that could be, right? So
Exactly. Yeah.
um, Blackwater is one of the few records by any act that was released as a B-side on one Hot 100 hit single
Yeah.
before topping the Hot 100 itself
It's
as an A-side for another single.
yeah, no song has a journey like that. And right.
Blackwater would rank number 15 for the year. Had, of course, great critics. Cashbox praised the song, saying, quote, it has trickling, bubbling acoustical guitars, flowing
Oh,
harmonies.
yeah.
Keep this track running true to course with a fiddle flashing just below the surface,
Oh,
end
it's
quote. Record World called it, quote, an impressive change of pace item, spiced with a cappella vocals coming out of an acoustic guitar and fiddle mood. It flows nicely.
it's astounding. It's just astounding.
It,
It,
it's
nothing like it.
it's so feel good. I mean, I just don't know how. You can listen to that and not just say, "Oh yeah," just go with
I
it. It's just
I have, I mean, I think you're right. Exactly. I had this distinct memory of being a kid in the winter of I guess it was like late November, December of 74, driving back to my hometown, sitting in the back seat, and that song came on, and it just kind of washed over me. I just remembered this, and it was just like, and then it gets to that a cappella part at the end, and it's like, you sort of try to kind of join in and stuff. It's it's just so amazing. I mean, this is for Simmons, it's got to be kind of a career. This is Apex Mountain, right? This is going to be a
oh,
landmark for him.
you would
It
definitely
never
think.
it never got any better for him than this. This is a tremendous song.
There's one person who plays on this that you might not expect.
Hmm.
On auto harp and wind chimes, it's Arlo Guthrie.
Well, that I wouldn't have expected that, but it does sort of make sense.
It makes sense. I
But
just was very
Arlo,
very surprised to see him listed as part of the personnel here.
oh, me too. Arlo Guthrie. I guess maybe I don't know if that how well known that is. That's interesting. Oh, cool.
So let's listen in.
Oh, let's do.
Oh, black water, keep on rolling. Mississippi moon, won't you keep on shining on me? Oh, black water, keep on rolling. Mississippi moon, won't you keep on shining on me? Oh, black water, keep on rolling. Mississippi moon, won't you keep on shining on me? Keep on shining your light, gonna make everything gonna make everything alright. And I ain't got no worries, 'cause I ain't in no hurry at all.
That's terrific. It's obviously it's a terrific song. I think it's a terrific recording.
Oh yeah,
I think Templeman does a fine job harnessing the band in this way. And
absolutely.
it just opens up. I think it just opens up new doors for the Doobie Brothers, who are um, in this era a really surprisingly eclectic group. I
Yeah.
mean, but okay, so awesome. Thank you. So that's so cool. So speaking of eclectic, so I mean, as we've talked about many times, you never know in a top 10
No.
in the 1970s. And so you go from the Doobie Brothers to at number 6, the Ohio Players with Fire the Way She Walks, the way she it's okay. The Ohio Players are a funk extravaganza.
Disco era
Largely,
is going to be very
uh,
very good to them.
for sure. I mean, largely a horn band. They had a massive success on the R&B charts in particular, where they topped the R&B slash soul charts 5 times in the 1970s, and they got add another 5 top 10 R&B hits. I mean, they're there everywhere. They had a couple of spillover pop hits. This is certainly one of them, which Fire would eventually peak at number 1. The other spillover pop hit was Love Roller Coaster a little bit later this year in
Oh yeah.
75, which also makes it to number 1. Um, Reportedly, when recording this, Stevie Wonder got a chance to listen to a rough cut of Fire and knew immediately that it was a hit. Now, the other thing that the Ohio Players were known for in the 1970s, in addition to their funk extravaganza, were their album covers, which were, we'll say,
Suggestive.
suggestive, erotic, incendiary, and oftentimes, people would be crowded around them. I have a vivid memory of crowding around Ohio Players record albums in a music store once. But it's so yeah, again, that's one of the things that made them, I guess, kind of noteworthy. It was a bit of a star-crossed band. They had a number of problems then following their peak, but there's just no getting around the fact that the Ohio Players were a force in the 1970s. And you talk about them in this kind of proto-disco era that they will move into, right, this dance into this dance universe, and it'll be very successful for them. So let's take a listen. Let's take a listen to a cut from Fire. And I think I got it this time. We'll listen to the bridge, which I think is as good as anything from this era. So the Ohio Players, Fire. smoking band. So Fire, the Ohio Players. What's not to love? My Lord. Okay. At number seven, then again, you just never know what you're going to get in the top 10 in the 1970s.
Like a box of chocolates.
Like a box of chocolates. It's America with lonely people.
Yeah. And this was written by the guitarist Dan Peake and his wife, Catherine.
Yeah.
It appears on their fourth studio album, Holiday. That was released by Warner Brothers in June 1974. The album was produced at George Martin's Air Studios, Air Associated Independent Recording, on Oxford Street, London. And this would be the first of 6 consecutive albums that he produced with America. It was a very good collaboration. The album itself reached number 3 on the Billboard 200 chart and was certified gold, mostly on the strength of Tin Man, which had already been released, and this single. Tin Man reached number 4 on the singles chart and went to number 1 on the adult contemporary chart. Lonely People also went to number 1 on the adult contemporary chart and peaked at number 5 on the Hot 100 chart. So this was Peake talked about how this was kind of an answer to his answer to Eleanor Rigby.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
Look at all the lonely people. Where do they all come from? And he had always found that so melancholy, and he wanted to give it a positive twist. He had just recently married, and knew that it's possible for a lonely person to grab for the ring, to drink from the silver cup, and this is just to encourage all the lonely people out there not to give up, just to make the effort to
I,
go after life.
There's a poignancy to this. I mean, critics would obviously, call it saccharine and all that, but I do think there's a certain poignancy to this that you don't. Yeah, I mean, it's very straightforward in this way. It's a plea in that way. Yeah, it's interesting.
Peake had originally offered the song to John Sebastian,
Yeah.
who apparently was
I
not
see
interested. So it kind of got onto the Holiday album by coincidence as much as anything. Also interesting is that after Peake left America in 1977, because the life of a pop star was just
It was,
a little bit too crazy, the groupies and the drugs. It was just he had to get out. And so he left that lifestyle for um, a lifestyle of Christianity. He left. He found the Lord,
Yeah, he was a contemporary Christian artist for a long time, right?
including a retexting of Lonely People.
Well, yeah, I can see that. Yeah,
which was number 2 on the Christian charts for a while. That appeared on his Electro Voice album, 1986. But instead of Ride That Highway in the Sky, we get And Give Your Heart to Jesus Christ. Now I'm on my...
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, all right. So,
all right.
Not too much of a reach.
No.
Let's give it a listen.
Let's do.
Thinking that love has left them dry. Don't give up until you drink from the silver cup. You never know until you try. Well, I'm on my way. Yes, I'm back to stay my way back home. Get it.
Hit it.
Get it. There we go. Lonely People from America at number seven. It's hard to think of George Martin having a kind of second act after having worked with the Beatles, but you know that his time with America and with Jeff Beck, he recorded a couple of really
Right,
outstanding albums
right.
with Beck. It's not nothing. So we're gonna come back to the charts in just a second, but here's a quick trivia question for you, Dave.
Oh my goodness.
So some 35 years ago, the film Wayne's World,
Yes.
there's of course the infamous, the famous, the incredible scene of Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yes.
What vehicle are they in? Do you know the make of the vehicle?
At the make of the vehicle, it's Wayne's car. That's all I know.
Okay. Well, they were in an AMC Pacer. And in February
Oh
1970,
yeah. Yeah,
Motors
okay.
Corporation
Uh-huh.
introduces the Pacer, the wide small car. And did you ever know anybody who owned a Pacer? Or did you ever drive one?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
Yeah, famously, the Pacer was difficult to heat and cool because there was a lot of window. But we did know somebody who had a Pacer when we were in college. I recall one Gary Fike who who we both went to college with. He had a Pacer. It was the Oleg Cassini designer Pacer, as I recall. But the Pacer, which was I think immortalized in Wayne's World. So
Well, if you're going
uh,
to have four guys singing a cappella, five guys, right? I think there are five guys. You need a car.
there's certainly room for five.
Yeah, you need a car with some space. So,
There we go. So you have the Pacer from the American Motors Corporation. What a what a bunch of I'm sure they were fine. I'm sure they were fine automobiles. At number eight, let's jump back to the charts. Number eight, we talked about this last month. It's Stevie Wonder's Boogie On, Reggae Woman. Again, Stevie Wonder's Imperial period. He can do no wrong in the mid 1970s. At number nine is a solo effort from New Jersey's own Frankie Valli. It's My Eyes Adored You. Valli had a couple of solo hits over the years. First, of course, he had Can't Take My Eyes Off of You from 1967, which was a big song. But in the mid 1970s, then Valli struck kind of solo gold with
that was
song,
that was even part of the soundtrack to Deer Hunter, right? Can't take my
yeah,
eyes off you. Yeah.
yeah. Uh, I I couldn't tell you much about Deer Hunter because I was always curled up in a fetal position. But undoubtedly, right, yes. But Frankie Valli, though, had a long time association with Bob Crewe. Bob Crewe was a producer, is actually part of the Four Seasons at one time. Bob Crewe co-wrote this along with Kenny Nolan. And so it's sort of an in-house kind of, so it's a solo effort, but there's a kind of Four Seasons kind of thing happening here as well. This song will peak at number one. My Eyes Adored You, a kind of innocent number, I guess, about days gone by. Kenny Nolan, the other co-writer, would have a solo hit with in a couple of years. I Like Dreaming, and so there's also bizarrely Kenny Nolan and Bob Crewe. Yes, I think certainly Kenny Nolan co-wrote Lady Marmalade, which we're going to talk about here
What?
very soon. Yeah, I know. So My Eyes Adore You to Lady Marmalade. So okay, I mean that's called range.
Yes. Yeah.
The Frankie Valli is amazingly still performing in a way, I guess, in Nevada at the age of 90 plus.
Wow.
It's and the history of the Four Seasons is a complicated and a contentious one, and part of it was depicted in a sanitized version was depicted in
Jersey Boys or
Jersey Boys,
yeah.
but it's really complicated. It's really complicated, and I mean, Frankie Valli. Well, he's got tremendous talent, but there's also there's a fair amount of things kind of swirling about Valli in this era. So it's But that being said, let's take a look at take a listen to My Eyes Adored You. Though I never laid a hand on you, my eyes adored you.
Headed for city lights, climb the ladder up to fortune and fame. I work my fingers to the bone, made myself a name. Funny, I seem to find that no matter how the years unwind, still I reminisce about the girl I miss and the love I left behind.
I mean, there you go. Tugs on the heartstrings a bit. So Frankie Valli's My Eyes Adored You at number 9. Speaking of number 9.
Number nine, number
Number
nine,
9.
number nine.
You
Yes, well,
you can't
speaking
get
of
enough.
number nine,
You can't get enough of that crazy former Beatle. It's John Lennon with number
Lennon.
9 Dream, number 10.
Yeah, this was also on uh, Walls and Bridges,
Yeah.
his fourth solo album, issued by Apple on September 26th, 1974 in the States and October 4th in the UK. Uh, the entire album was written, recorded, and released during the Lost Weekend.
Oh,
Um,
jeez.
his separation from Yoko Ono. We've talked a little bit about this
We certainly have.
already. The first big hit off this was "Whatever Gets You Through the Night," uh,
Yeah.
that he worked on with Elton John, and "Number Nine Dream" was the second single, basically on the strength of its two singles. First one, Gets You Through the Night," we've already talked about.
Right.
That that was his one and only, his first and only number one hit as a solo artist, both in the US and in Britain. He did not have another number one hit after that, before or after that.
Wow.
And number nine, Dream, uh, well, ironically, peaked at number nine on the Billboard Hot 100.
There we go.
Um, and it charted at number 23 in the UK, number 35 in Canada. On the strength of those two singles, Walls and Bridges became a number one album in the
Well,
UK.
yeah. So you're still going to still hold on to your position that of the solo Beatles that Lennon's career was still superior to George Harrison's?
Yeah.
Oh, come on. Okay. All right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
All right.
definitely.
We'll peek behind the curtain here at Steve and
Well,
Dave's. All right. Fair enough.
Ringo's was superior to George Harrison's.
It may have been, everyone can agree that Lennon's was the least interesting and
No,
successful.
no, no, no. I'm
Okay.
not with you there. Anyway,
Okay.
the album certified silver in the UK and gold in the US. Clearly, he wrote this song. It was literally a dream that he had that
Yeah.
well, he was just inspired by.
Yeah.
Um, the actual writing was fairly uninspired. He called it, let's see, the quote was, it's what I call craftsmanship writing, meaning, I just churned that out. I'm not putting it down, it's just what it is, but I just sat down and wrote it, with no real inspiration, based on a dream I'd had. So
Yeah.
the writing was very just craftsman like,
Mhm.
because it was just essentially transcribing this dream.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Um, he liked the string arrangement that he had written for Nilsson's rendition of Jimmy Cliff's "Many Rivers to Cross" from the album Pussycats, which was made at approximately the same time.
Yeah.
So he decided to incorporate that into the song. Um, so he wrote and arranged the song around his dream. He had this this dreamlike type of atmosphere. Had cellos and
Yeah, it's very, yeah, and it captures that. I mean,
it does capture that
it's
really
it's
well.
atmosphere. Yeah.
The critics liked it.
Oh, yeah.
Billboard commented on the contrast with Lennon's uh, "Whatever Gets You Through the Night," stating that Number Nine Dream is a quote soft rocker with strong production values,
Yeah,
um,
definitely.
which it expected would reach the top five, which clearly it didn't. Cashbox said that it quote is milder and more gentle than Whatever Gets You Through the Night, with fine and subdued instrumentation acting as mellow cushion to John's vocal, which is
Yeah.
end quote, which is also a really fine vocal in this case. I think he's
Oh, yeah. This is
some of his best lyric vocal work on
I
this song.
in my mind, this is the Mount Rushmore kind of Lennon solo number. This is one of my favorites. I think it's one of his best recordings.
Let's talk a little bit about the personnel.
Yeah.
Who was doing this? Because apart from Lennon and the 44th Street Fairies, um, made up of Lennon, May Pang, his companion of that
Mhm.
time, Laurie Burton and Joy Dambra. They were the backing vocals. We had a dream team of session players that Lennon pretty much used whenever he had recording to do. He put together just some incredible people, um, like Ken Asher on clavinet.
Mhm.
Uh, Ken Asher, we've talked a little bit about him before. He co-wrote The Rainbow Connection with Paul
Oh,
Williams.
of course. Yeah.
Received a Grammy for that. Jesse Ed Davis on guitar. Have you heard of
Yeah.
this guy?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Native
This,
American. Played was yeah, he was an essential session guy and was a kind of go-to guitarist in bands and whatnot.
yeah,
Troubled existence, but yeah, an extraordinary player.
right.
Played with Dylan and all everybody. Yeah.
Just a legend,
Yeah, I mean,
session
flat
player.
out, flat out. Yeah.
And there's even been a documentary on his
Mhm.
life. I believe he died of an addiction
Yeah, there was substance abuse in
in the
his
mid
story.
80s.
Yeah, yeah.
So tragic because by all accounts he was just brilliant. Uh,
Yes.
then we had Nicky Hopkins on the electric piano.
Well, the ubiquitous one
Yes,
played with everyone and was is everywhere.
yes. He was on like all of the Rolling Stones studio albums.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's
their
either him or
Satanic
Stu.
Majesty's Request in 67
Yeah.
through Tattoo You in 81. Only missed Some Girls. That's the only one that he missed out on.
Well, if you're
And
gonna
in
miss on
most
that record,
cases,
that's the one.
even played more than some of the Stones on a couple of.
No, yeah, so yeah, he's a legend and was in he played a lot with Townsend. He played oh my God, he played with everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
He was invited by Shel Talmy,
Hmm.
uh, producer of the Kinks and the Who,
Yeah.
to record with the Kinks in 1965. He played on four of their studio albums, and the relationship between him and the Kinks deteriorated after the release of The Kinks Are the Village Green Preservation Society.
It's a peculiar record, but yes.
Yes, he said about 70% of that keyboard work on that album was his,
Unbelievable.
and he was not credited for that,
And I believe that too.
and he was not paid for that.
And I believe that too. Yeah.
Incredible, but
Well, yeah. The Kinks.
yeah, the Kinks. So he was first invited to join the Who by Shel Talmy,
Hmm.
also 1965, while they were recording My Generation, their debut. And he continued to work with them through 1975, the Who by Numbers, and
Oh
also
yeah.
the soundtrack to Ken Russell's Tommy.
Oh yeah. And he played on some Townsend solo stuff as well. So yeah.
Um, he, it's said that Townsend actually offered him a position in the band, which Townsend doesn't recall, but apparently that happened,
I mean, sure.
uh, and in later years, Hopkins always maintained a soft spot for the band, The Who.
Oh yeah,
And he said they were probably his favorite act to work with. He also recorded he was also on Revolution by the Beatles, 1968, and he worked extensively with each of the four of them when they went solo.
absolutely.
Yoko Ono later said that his performance was, quote, so melodic and beautiful that it still makes everyone cry even now, end quote. He was reportedly offered to play in Led Zeppelin when the group was forming, but declined that offer. So, yeah, like you said,
He's
omnipresent.
yeah,
The guy was
yeah.
everywhere, and everybody wanted to work with him.
Yeah, so he was a combination of a gifted musician and a personality who was people wanted wasn't grating. He wasn't demanding the spotlight. He was somebody who was easy to work with, which is these are qualities that you want in a bandmate. And so anyway, yeah, it's an interesting career.
Then we had Arthur Jenkins on percussion. Um, May Pang brought him to the attention of Lennon, and he did a lot of work with Lennon and Yoko. Um, Lennon would jokingly credit Jenkins for, quote, all the bells and whistles, end quote, on his records. Then we have Jim Keltner. We've talked about Keltner too,
Of
uh,
course.
because he's of course known for his session work on the solo recordings by Harrison, Lennon, and Starr, also by the Plastic Ono Band. If John Lennon needed somebody on drums, he got Keltner.
Right.
He also played on both of the albums by the Traveling Wilburys under
Hmm.
the pseudonym Buster Sidebury. He was Ry Cooder's go-to drummer.
Yeah.
Uh, Played on most of his albums over 40 years, including playing with him in the group Little Village. Uh, in 1973, he was the session drummer on Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, including, of course, Knocking on Heaven's Door. He described that session as, quote, a monumental session for me because it was such a touching song. It was the first time I actually cried when I was playing, end quote. We had
Yeah.
Bobby Keys on saxophone,
The one, the only.
long year associate of the Stones, same
Where's the
birthday.
where's the champagne?
Oh God,
Where's the tub?
same birthday as Richards. He was Jagger's best man at his
Oh my,
wedding.
which
Tell
one?
tell the
Okay.
story. This was
I'm
the
not taking
episode
this
that
straight
you're
from
referring
you.
to was kind
This
of the
is yours.
break, the break with
This
the
is yours.
band for a
No,
while.
this is your story that this is the age of excess, right? And so he's
He filled
he
a
filled
bathtub
the
with Dom Perignon. Um,
the report. Yeah, I mean,
a bathtub full
it takes
and drank a lot of it. But that that
that was
bathtub had more value in it than his what he was being paid for the tour.
it's interesting what tripped the switch in the Stones, a famously tolerant group. That didn't go over well, did it?
It did not go over well. That was the led to a break. At least Jagger
Yeah, I think that's yeah.
was not
Not a
amused.
temper.
And see, the
No.
thing is, you can imagine a story like that with the Stones, but then it better be a Jaggers or Richards who's doing it, right? Um, that type of
Well, right.
excess is star quality excess.
Yeah.
And not,
Suddenly, Mick Jagger's time at the London School of Economics comes to the fore, and it's like you're out. You got
yeah,
people doing the math. But I mean, Keys was a kind of wild man for a long time, but was really a kind of Stones insider. I mean, eventually they buried the hatchet and all,
they
but
buried the hatchet. Richards tells the story. Preparing for one of their tours, they were practicing, and he had Keys come and wait backstage. He said, "Look, when we play Wild Horses, you just wait, and when it's time for your solo, you just come in with it. And that's what happened. And Richards turns to Jagger and said, "You see what I mean?" And Jagger said, "Well, you can't argue with that." And so he
Yeah.
was back.
He was the best. It really was. He was the best.
He played with the three solo Beatles, Harry Nilsson, Eric Clapton, Joe Cocker, Leonard Skinner. So a very, very in demand sax guy.
Say, yeah, for sure.
Eddie Motow,
Mhm.
Eddie Motow on acoustic guitar. He played guitar on most of Lennon's solo albums. Um, and these guys, they made up essentially the Lennon All-Star Band, right?
Right.
Um, oh wait, we haven't mentioned the bass player yet. I
Oh,
wonder if you might guess who
let me
that
just take a
was.
guess. Can I have Klaus Vormann for 50, please?
Klaus Foreman, yeah, bass guitar. Yeah, absolutely. Of course, of course.
I mean, in a way, I mean, these there's a handful of musicians that play with, like you're suggesting, play with all the Beatles. I mean, it's
Yes.
like the Beatles are the solo Beatles front a band, and the band has a different lead, um, depending on the recording session. But yeah, it's a lot of the
I
same
was
guys.
thinking about this, and I think it's possible that Klaus Foreman played on more songs with a Beatles member than played bass on more songs with a Beatles member than McCartney did. He was on like
Maybe.
every one
Yeah,
of their solo albums.
I'm sure somebody has looked that up, but I mean, it seems at least, yeah, it seems possible, right? Oh yeah, for decades. Foreman,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So I bet he.
it's possible. Yeah.
Anyway, but as you said, these guys they were always there when it's about, and by extension also Nilsson, because Lennon producing Nilsson had the same guys come in and do their thing. So they were seeing each other all the time. It's kind of like the Wrecking Crew, just on a smaller
Yeah.
basis. Well, let's listen to this.
Let's do. Let's do.
I believe you think this is
Oh, it's just
his best.
it could be. Yeah, it might be. It's right up there. Great cover, though.
Just a dream. I know, yes, I know. It seems so very real. Seems so real to me. To go down the street. Somebody call my name. I just started to rain. Two spirits dancing so strange.
Yeah. So there we go. Number nine, Dream at
Well,
number
this
10. This is
uh,
it. This is the song.
this the John that's been.
John.
I always thought that was Yoko, but of course it wasn't Yoko because
It wasn't Yoko.
it was during the last weekend. It was May Pang.
It's but as a it's this the it does carry over this notion of the dream, right?
Oh,
It's
yeah,
just
absolutely. Yeah.
I think I think it might be his best solo work. I mean, I think it's just terrific. So
It's a
um,
great song. Yeah.
it's a great song. All right. So let me ask you a question. So if it's mid February, what's February 75? What are the two most popular shows on American television? And they're both sitcoms. What do you
I'm
think?
gonna go, well, I'm just taking a stab in the dark.
Stab in the
Marathon War
dark.
and MASH.
Excellent guesses. And very popular shows, but let me show you. So they're trading places each week. One week it's one show, one week it's the other show, but it's All in the Family and Sanford and Son. And
Wow. Okay.
so number one in 75, February 75. And if you think about it, they are very much the same kind of show.
They're very similar. Yeah.
Very similar. And catering to, I think, probably a very similar audience, interestingly enough. Um, this is the Sanford and Son is Red Fox's kind of mainstream premiere. Red Fox had been a huge nightclub act for
Yes.
decades, but his act was Blue, a
Yes.
ribald comedian.
Yes.
He had a series of albums that were
He was
so-called
no Bill
ex
Cosby.
there's no Bill Cosby. I mean, incredibly popular, and the albums themselves had quite a following, but they were considered sort of X-rated, hence the double X in Red Fox's name. But when NBC, he got the role as Fred Sanford and really ran with it. So I don't have much to say here other than they are very similar shows in terms of the structure, in terms of the internal dynamic, the kind of tension that's going on there.
Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah. The
there you have it,
generational thing. Yeah.
the generational thing
Right.
and all that. There we go. It's All in the Family and Sanford and Son.
Right.
Last song I want to talk about today is we're going to bid farewell to one Carole King, who has been a part of the 70s, a big part of the 70s. But this is her final will be a top 10 appearance. It's the song Nightingale from the album Wraparound Joy. Um, it will be it's a kind of slight number. It's 15 right now. It peak at 9. It's a kind of slight number, but like with all of Carole King's songs, there's a certain kind of beauty to it that you just get wrapped up in. And Nightingale is a song that she penned with a guy by the name of David Palmer, who won't mean much to many people, but he was at one time part of Steely Dan. He was in the original Steely Dan band. In fact, he's the person who was the lead vocalist of Steely Dan before Donald Fagen took over those duties. It's David Palmer, for example, who's on that album, who's on the song Dirty Work from the first album, Can't Buy a Thrill. But he was kind of pushed out of Steely Dan, and he was kind of lyricist for hire, and he worked with Carole King a couple different songs. Carole King's daughters, Louise and Sherry, sing backup, and you also then hear one Charles Larkey ripping it up on bass. And so this is, I think, a good way to close today's show by our old friend Carole King, who it's kind of hard to imagine that there wouldn't be a chart Carole King on it, but this is kind of it. And so here we go with Carole King's Nightingale.
She sails away upon a sea of song. Nightingale, she serenades his lonely, lonely life along. When his strength is slowly going, his pride is all but gone. She makes a foolish dreamer listen to one last song. Nightingale.
And we thank Carole for all that she gave the 70s, that's for sure. And so
Absolutely. Yeah.
why don't you take us home?
All righty. Well, if you enjoyed this episode, and we hope you did, give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed yet, you can do that right here. Um, you can listen to another 50 years ago this month right up here. And as always, you'll want to be sure to check out the playlist. A lot of great music right here.
Indeed. And we always include a reading list. It gives you a chance to explore some of the figures that we've talked about over these shows. It's a combination of articles that you can link to online as well as then books that have been published in the past, typically the past 30 years. And we're also then always posting new content each day on BlueSky. And so Steve and Dave's one on BlueSky. So, well, until next time, we'll see you soon.
Bye bye.